Are you searching for a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the world? Do you yearn for more balance, more peace, and purpose in your life? Well, look no further than the Intuitive Revolution podcast, your trusted source for holistic insights and intuitive guidance. I'm your host, Alicia Faricelli, and I am ready to take you on a journey to inner peace and balanced well-being. On the Intuitive Revolution podcast, thanks for coming in and sharing your story and your journey and all your wisdom. Can you share your personal journey of how you became a shaman and trauma healing mentor?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so excited to be here I love the name of this podcast, first and foremost, Intuitive Revolution. It's awesome. Um, I'll give you like the medium length story of how that
Okay.
happened. 7 years ago, I was in college and I had all these new physical symptoms. I developed chronic pain, autoimmune disease, what I now know as autoimmune symptoms, anxiety, depression, all the things. And I was really struggling with this like burning, nagging, life consuming chronic pain at the time. And I went on this journey of trying to fix it. When the brain sees a problem, the body has a problem, it's just like obsessive, tries to fix it. And I got into holistic health, wellness. I went vegan for a couple years. I did a bunch of different detoxes, did acupuncture, chiropractic, all the things that you can think of, I did. Um, you know, Trigger point massage, like all the things. And I did have some relief, but I didn't fully feel free of the symptoms. I still was obsessed with them and had the physical symptoms. It wasn't until I discovered emotional trauma work, the concept that past experiences and emotions are held within your body and can then manifest as physical symptoms, that I began to actually have relief. I started to dive into my own, like just emotional processing, looking at what, experiences in my childhood I had suppressed, just, intuitively guided. I just kind of like tried to figure things out myself. And during that time, I was also awakening my psychic senses, my psychic gifts, realizing that I could read energy, that I could talk to people's spiritual guides. And so I was doing like energy work, just intuitive channeling sessions for people, giving them answers to questions they had. And I did that for a couple years, and then I got introduced, divinely orchestrated, of course, to a shaman. And you know how things like that just show up in your path, and it's like,
Absolutely.
yep, that's for me.
Yes.
So I got introduced to a shaman, and it was just clear that that was my next step. I needed like training. I felt like I needed some sort of training. And I'm not big on like trainings and certifications. I'm not one of those people that's like obsessed with getting all the things, but which it's cool if you are, but I'm just not. But I knew that this is a training I wanted to go through. So she lives in North Carolina. She studied in Peru 30 years ago. She's been a shaman since then. And I studied under her in North Carolina for a year. Um, and I got trained in shamanic rites. And now I have my own shamanic healing practice, helping other people heal the emotional and energetic root causes of their issues in life.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a needed thing, especially going through the journey. You have such a purpose of healing other people. I love that. So many people find themselves caught in cycles of people pleasing. Can you explain how these behaviors relate to our primal body and nervous system and why it's essential to address these aspects for personal growth and empowerment?
I love that. And I know like we're excited to really do this podcast because of my recent topics in my business and social media. I recently taught a class about ending people pleasing and um, really reclaiming your power of your yes and your no and your truth, right? Like speaking your truth. How people pleasing and the primal nervous system relate to each other. I love this conversation, and I have like hour long classes on this, so I'm going to condense it down. Essentially, there's 4 different states of the nervous system. Okay, well, 4 different dysregulated states of the nervous system. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Okay, most people listening have probably heard of those. Um, have you heard of them?
Yes.
I'm sure.
Very,
Yeah, of
very,
course.
very
Yeah,
familiar with those.
I figured. Yeah, most people in this world are.
So are you a
So
fight, flight, or fleet? Which one do you primarily?
it depends. In different seasons of my life, I was different. Um, back in the day, I was super avoidant in freeze and in flight. Um, it really is circumstantial for me, I would
Yeah.
say. In my relationship, I'm one thing, in my business, I'm another. It's super circumstantial. But I would say the one that woke me up the most was actually the fawn response. That one is super subtle. So the fawn response is the people pleasing. That's what we're talking about here, right? The people pleasing
Yes.
response.
Yes.
It's the necessity to appease surroundings, environment, people, right?
Yeah.
So what the people pleasing response does is it makes us mold ourselves so that we're safe. Right. And now, what I love about this conversation, and in terms of the primal body, specifically for women, right, specifically
Mhm.
for women listening, is the fawn response is almost, I don't want to say exclusive, but it is dominantly, predominantly found in women, the fawn
Mhm.
response. And this is because we have higher estrogen. Um, we have more hormones and more primal impulses in our body to be in tune with relationship. So we have to be bonding with our babies. We have to be managing connections within a community. We have to be attuned to the needs of others, right? And hormonally, we're supported in that to be more relationally focused. But the downside and the shadow side of that is if I'm like programmed primarily biologically, physiologically to be relationally focused, the downside is you can become too relationally focused,
Yeah.
where then it's all about this relationship is more important than my own needs and my own sovereignty, right? So when it comes to the primal aspect of the nervous system, we as women we have to see if we want to be happy and fulfill our desires and soul purpose in this lifetime, we have to see what is that balance in my relationships? Am I sacrificing myself for others? Or am I maintaining a balance of sovereignty and also healthy relating? Right. Does that make sense?
It does. It's such a hard balance for a lot of women, but I think particularly to find that, because again, you have the people pleasing, but then it's like our needs and wants, and I think as a society, we're taught to set aside our needs, and that people pleasing is normal, is expected from
Mhm.
women, and it needs to stop.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we talked about in the class I just taught, I used the metaphor of like the witch, right?
Right.
Um, and how for centuries, like women were persecuted as witches, whether they were practicing witchcraft or not,
Right.
right? And so nowadays, I like to look at it as like people are gonna not like you. People are gonna persecute you, whether you're a witch or not, whether you're doing the right thing or you're doing the wrong thing. You're gonna get persecuted. You're gonna get judged or rejected, or people aren't gonna like you, and that's just how it is, like point blank. And I do believe we haven't had women. Most of us haven't had women modeling a healthy balance of like sovereignty and healthy respect for their own desires while also maintaining healthy deep intimate relationships. It's either like one or the other, like she's an independent woman doing her own thing, probably lonely, right?
Yeah.
Or she's like a mother and a wife, and she nurtures everyone around her. We typically have seen one or the other, and we as individuals are not one or the other, we're both. And so I believe, really facing this people pleasing mechanism societally, but also like recognizing we haven't had models for it. And so we're the ones kind of leading that revolution, so to speak.
Yes.
So yeah.
I love that. It's so needed. So, so needed. I appreciate your work on that. Um, so, how can connecting with unseen relevant forces, as you mentioned, help individuals break free from negative cycles and unlock their potential?
I love that. Shamanic healing differs from other like energy healing modalities because we're working with specific spiritual guides and spiritual forces in the session. So, there's a science behind my one-on-one healing sessions. Like there's the practicality, there's the nervous system work, that kind of stuff. But then there's this mystical component that cannot be explained in the session. How do I know that this is the thing you need to hear? How do I know that um, this pattern is coming from this ancestor without knowing anything about your family or and that's then confirmed by my client. we're working with I'm working directly with your spiritual guides within a session and my own spiritual guidance within a session to get to the root of the thing. So typically when people want to heal stuff and move forward in their life, they go to therapy, they follow the therapist's like, standard what they read in a textbook. This is what you need to do to heal. And that doesn't work for individuals. It gives them a blueprint, but that blueprint does not work for majority of people because we're so individualistic. So every person, when they're healing a pattern, like you healing people pleasing versus me healing people pleasing versus my mom healing it versus someone else healing it, everyone needs something different. We all have different roots of it and we all have different ways of healing it. So in a session, the only, people's not the right word, but how we get to the root of how you have to heal it is through accessing the wisdom of our spiritual guides. They can see things that we cannot. And so um, when I'm helping someone heal something, their spiritual guides are telling me what needs to happen for that individual to heal it and how to guide them through that process that's unique to them so that they can be free to live their purpose. Now, as an individual, you can connect with your spiritual guides and they can give you wisdom as well. That is, beyond your logical comprehension that can really help you move forward in unexpected ways as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you do on a different path, a little bit different technique. I call them techniques, but a little bit different. Calling in your spirits and to go through the energetic healing and stuff too. I found that so much better combining that with other modalities. I think even like 'cause as a personal energy healer, I have people work on me all the time. I have different avenues. I have different mentors. And I love that you can combine all of this together to create an individual healing instead of just going to your traditional therapy, talking about your problems, going back into your past, reliving all of that on a
Mhm.
more knowledge basis instead of putting together sort of a plan forward. So, yeah, I totally feel that
Yeah.
with you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure as an energy healer yourself and someone who's in tune, that you've seen the mysterious ways that things unfold for each person so differently. So it's exciting to be having that conversation, and for anyone listening, like I'm sure they've experienced it as well.
Yes. And if they haven't, they definitely need to. So
For
it's
sure, yeah.
definitely life changing for that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Could you share a powerful example of experience from your own practice of how the energetic healing, talking to the spirit guides, how has that helped your clients? Kind of more a specific example for those who are
Yeah.
interested, a little bit interested in learning more about it, just kind of on the edge of whether
Mhm.
to start that practice.
Yeah. So I've had so many experiences with clients that have just really wowed me, really, really wowed me. And I should say that people come to me for such a variety of things. Sometimes people are experiencing physical health issues. Sometimes people are just unclear what their purpose is. Sometimes people have felt depressed for years or have relationship patterns that they want to break free of, right? It's such a variety. And so I'll share a deep one that I had in the past couple 6 months, and I do want to give like a trigger warning because it is
But
in regards to sexual assault. So I will kind of just put that out there. Is that okay that we explore that story in the
Oh,
podcast?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I had a woman, a young woman, younger than I am, even under 22, come to me, and she had recently, she didn't tell me this in the beginning. Shamanic healing was like an edge for her. She didn't exactly know what she was getting into. And she didn't tell me that this is why she was coming to the session, but I knew it's why she was coming to the session. She just said she felt stuck and blah, 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 blah. But she had experience in it that we unveiled in the session as she gathered trust in the session. She was able to reveal this. But she had recently experienced a sexual assault by a friend, and uh, it was her first ever sexual experience. So that's something to keep in mind. And so she was having flashbacks from that experience almost daily, if not daily, at least 5 times a week. So she has some PTSD, flashbacks, recurring, stuff. She had like let it go in her mind. She just wanted to move forward. She just wanted to let it go, but she was having trouble. And in like, this always makes me emotional just because it's a young girl, and, you know, it really hit my heart. 'Cause we had one session together, and I could tell that it had finally resolved in her system, but I was curious what was gonna like, I like to keep up with my clients and, like, know how it influences their physical life. And about a month after our session, she texted me and she checked in with me, and she was like, I just wanted to thank you because I haven't had a single flashback since our session. And again, previously she was having them almost daily. So when we resolve these things through shamanic healing, they literally just like clear out, like they don't influence you anymore. We close the tab fully on the experience. And that was just another like reminder for me of the power of shamanic healing, that it literally cleared the entire experience for her. She feels at peace, and also the symptoms of the flashbacks are completely gone as well.
Wow, that's an incredible story. That's so incredible. It's
I
like it's to the power of just first wanting to heal from that, and then finding the right means and modalities to be able to fully release all of that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so powerful. Yeah. So when it comes to ending people pleasing as women and owning our power, what are some practical steps or techniques that listeners can start to implement in their lives today?
Mm. So I have a new membership community called The River, and I'm running the whole month of November is No F's November. So I'm like
Okay.
dripping out, little techniques and little practices and that kind of stuff. But I'll give you the gist of No F's
Okay.
November in the pillars in which it's built upon. Um, but it is a practice, ending people pleasing, right? It's a consistent practice. What I would recommend is the first step as a primary foundation to educate yourself on how your body works, how your nervous system and your mind influence each other, right? And how emotions, experiences, memories are held in the nervous system and body. Once we can understand the framework and the language of how our bodies work and what's happening in our body at any given time. For example, okay, I'm clearly in a fawn response. That's helpful language. Even if you're not communicating it to anyone, it's helpful language for yourself to identify and to categorize experience so that we can change it, right?
Yeah.
Because once we're able to identify something, we can then change it. But if you don't even see that you're people pleasing, or you don't even see that you're in a freeze response, or that you've done this for your whole life, we can't actually make any changes on it. So, the pillars of No F's November are about understanding your nervous system, understanding your values of why are you devoted to moving beyond people pleasing, right? Like, what's the point? What are you taking a stand for? For me, I take a stand for freedom, freedom to be myself, but also I take a stand for real intimacy. We can't experience real intimacy if we're people pleasing, right?
Right.
So, the foundations would be understanding the nervous system, taking a stand for something that draws you forward. Why are we moving? What are we moving towards? Um, and then practice like any muscle. the reason why I created the community is, and you could do this in your own community, in your own friendships, right? Like you don't have to join the community I'm talking about, but you have to practice the art, like practice being seen little by little, practice speaking your truth, even if people won't like it, little by little. And you want to do that first in safe spaces that can hold your truth, not a space that, you share a little bit about who you are and then you get attacked for it. That's going to, that's going to
There
not
goes your
be a
nervous
good
system.
thing. Yeah, like you're not giving your nervous system any sort of safety, right? And we
Yeah.
heal with others. We heal in this pattern in the context of others and with others. So, safe spaces to practice that, whether that's in your relationship with a friend, sharing vulnerability, speaking your truth, your unpopular opinions, saying no when you want to say yes, or and vice versa. That kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, the three categories I'd say to focus on is educate yourself on your nervous system and your body. Um, get in spaces where you can share safely and practice that feeling of safety in your nervous system. And then also, shoot, what was the third one? Oh, make a stand. What are you taking a stand for moving forward?
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm actually going to share your information in the show notes. So if anyone wants to
Right.
sign up for that, they'll be able to as well.
Great.
So in your work, you focus on healing childhood, relationship, and generational traumas. Could you elaborate on the connection between these traumas and our ability to live at our highest destiny?
Yeah. And, another one in there is also in shamanic healing. Sometimes we're also focusing on past life traumas. Um, so that's something, to consider as well. When it comes to childhood, ancestral relationship, past life, when it comes to trauma in general, um, and we don't even have to, I mean, we'll just keep it under the word trauma for the sake of this conversation.
Right. I hate trauma. Everybody thinks that trauma is everything these days, but yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
not happy
Uh,
issues.
yeah, it's ruptures really, like experiences where we've had like experiences, right? Like I don't even know how to say it, but for the sake of the conversation, we'll just say trauma. And the definition of trauma in the context of how I use it is an experience that has happened that never got resolved in our bodies and in our emotional systems. Okay, so it's unresolved stuff that stays with us. Um, when unresolved things stay with us, they stay with us and they influence us, right? So they're trying to solve themselves. They're trying to fix themselves. They're trying to heal themselves. And they're living out through us almost as like these little behind the scenes controllers of our bodies and minds. And they're living out patterns and they're living out experiences and emotions through us. And so when people come to me and they're like, I feel stuck, I know I should be doing this thing, but I'm doing this other thing instead. I know I want to respect my partner, but instead I criticize him all the time. I know I want to make more money, but instead I keep sabotaging and spending all of it. I know I want to be seen, but instead I keep hiding and, not embracing my full power. There's these different controllers happening in our bodies, basically. There's your conscious, like, I want to do this, but then there's the other controller that's coming from a rupture that's not letting you do this. So it's not until we resolve those ruptures and those other little controllers that are trying to figure out their own problems in us that those controllers can chill out, take a back seat. Those controllers will, drop their controlling mechanisms for good, right? When we resolve these issues, it's like this little person drops their remote control and they go and they sit and they go lay in bed and they never come out of bed, right? I don't know if that analogy makes sense, but that's what came to mind. And so when we resolve them, essentially they don't control us anymore and they can't control us anymore. And then we can move forward and live our destiny and have more, control over the direction we're going in life.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Complete.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what role does the nervous system play in our journey to authenticity? Sorry, let me say that again. So, what role does the nervous system play in our journey to being authentic and empowerment? And how can we work to achieve lasting transformation?
I see the nervous system as our way of getting there. Okay, so I believe we all have a soul's destiny, right? We all have like a a destiny that's like etched into our souls. It's like it's ours in this lifetime. And I see our bodies and our nervous systems as our way of getting there. So as the path to it. And what I mean by that is if I want more money, right? This is everyone wants more money. So I feel like this is a good example, right? Shouldn't say everyone, but most people.
Right.
Um, if I want more money, I get to first, before even implementing that outside stuff of building more money, I get to first do it inside of my nervous system. I get to feel where the blocks to what more money would mean for my nervous system first, because that's what's going to determine if I can actually continuously create more money or if I'm going to fall back into the patterns. The patterns are within the nervous system, right? So it's not until we can hold that amount of money in our nervous system and we can hold that amount of joy or freedom or responsibility that comes with the money that then we can create it consistently and forever and completely change our reality in our external life. So a lot of times you'll hear people make more money, but then they spend it all, right? That
Right.
shows me their nervous system cannot handle whatever having more money is invoking in them. Whether that's they're not comfortable with the freedom or they're afraid of the responsibility, um, etc. You can insert anything. It's unique to the individual. But to answer your question, I see the nervous system as the path to the thing, as the center of your life, and as the foundation for anything that you want to create in your life.
Yeah. So basically, it starts with your nervous system, healing that, and then you can kind of move forward with the steps um, to achieving that goal.
Mhm. And then it begins to work as like a cyclical nature. Like you see the patterns playing out in your external reality, and then you can look to your nervous system for wisdom, and then you can continue that like step by step growth. Um, because I don't want people to get stuck in I have to heal, I have to heal, I have to heal, and then not take any action, right? Like the action also shows you what's going on in your nervous system. Your nervous system then propels you forward. There's like a dance that happens between the two.
Yeah. Sometimes when you get into like the freeze mode, like people get into this freeze mode. They're like, I can't do anything. I can't. So really the first step is to start recognizing the pattern, things that you need to start healing with. Am I hearing you right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I would get familiar with your nervous system patterns, for sure, just as a foundation of for any transformation.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So I want to talk about something that is controversial inside of I'm going to call it the Christian faith. Um, the season of the witch vibes, and it sounds so fascinating coming from a spiritual perspective. I know you had a thing come out about Christianity. Can witches love Jesus? Um, tell me a little bit about that. Can you explain what it means and embracing the energy, how it really empowers people on their journey?
Yeah, so I held a class a couple days before Halloween, right? And this class came to me and I knew it was gonna just blow up, honestly, in a good way. Like I knew it was gonna be a hit. I could feel the potency of it and it ended up being amazing. I called it Season of the Witch. Okay. And this was my class to end people pleasing, to embrace your true power, your authenticity, and speak your truth. And we mentioned a little bit about the analogy before. The reason why I felt so connected, like logically, to this concept of the witch is because when we look at history, like tens of thousands of people have been persecuted and killed for being accused of being a witch. And I believe that's held in our DNA and in our bodies, especially as women. This fear to be bigger, this fear to be seen, this fear to embrace our innate, not magical, but innate connection to the earth and to spirit at the same time. Um, it's hard, it feels hard to do that. and to be seen because, one reason is because of this history of persecution. Okay. That's remembered in our collective unconscious societally, and then also on an individual level. Now, I made a post, the whole creation of this class came from one moment with my husband. We were in the kitchen and you read the post, but I'll share it with your
Yes,
audience.
I thought it was very inspiring.
Me and my husband were in the kitchen, okay, and he owns his own company as well. He teaches Christian um, people how to build an online business. So he's a coach for them, a business coach for Christian people. And we go to a Christian church, all the things. And we're in the kitchen, and he saw my marketing for my new class, Season of the Witch. Okay. And I had just started marketing it, but I wasn't at like the heart of what it meant yet until this moment. And he said, babe, and he wasn't being mean. He was just kind of joking and having a conversation. He's like, babe, your marketing for your new class is pretty controversial for my business.
Right.
And and I agreed with him, like, duh, of course it is. But also, I got to reflect in that moment. Old me would have felt bad. Old me would have been like, oh no, like I'm ruining your business, or, like I shouldn't do this because of how it could affect other people. Like him, his business. I shouldn't do this because what if people misunderstand me? What if people are going to judge me about this? That I genuinely would have spiraled into that a year ago. And in this moment, like I just had this peace. Like he said that, and I just didn't for a second go into that. Had this peace wash over me, and this moment of realizing, like, oh wait, like only God knows my heart. Period. Only it's just me and God. That's it. That's who knows my heart. That's who knows my authenticity. That's who knows what I should create, what I shouldn't create. And God was clear for me, this is something you need to create. And so I made this post and I started out with, can witches love Jesus? And a bunch of women who have been, cast out of the Christian faith because of their psychic abilities or their passion for herbs or their love for, I don't know, oracle cards, or the fact that they speak to their dead ancestors. Like, they have been, persecuted in a way or felt left out. And they all reached out to me. They want to join the class, et cetera, et cetera. Now, um, why I think this matters is because it roots down to the original conversation around, can we be ourselves when people are going to like not understand us, when they're going to reject us, when they're going to judge us? Can we know within ourselves what is right without the external input? And it's a tough place because, I do see validity in the Bible, and I do follow a biblical style of life for the most part. But then it comes up against things like not speaking to, not using any divination practices, not speaking to ancestors that have passed. And then it says to like kill people who do that, right? So it that's literally what the Bible said. So when I come up against that, I just see another mechanism of control placed within humanity, and that's misunderstanding um, the way of being human, connected to earth and spirit at the same time.
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but
it did. And I love that. I think there's such a disconnect amongst the the religious faith. I'm just called religion, multiple,
yeah.
and the spiritual. We all have that inside of us. It was given to us. And a lot of
Mhm.
it, the judgments come around just a fear of and not letting go and expanding on that and really taking into, what is this practice for me? Like what is it for me? How can I be
Mhm.
authentic in this practice, um, and still feel secure and safe? Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely aspects of like quote unquote witchcraft and like that like I just don't resonate with. That's like, I believe intention is everything.
Exactly.
If you're doing like voodoo on people or wishing harm, like that's not what we're talking about here. That in under no circumstance, I don't believe God would invite you to do.
Right.
But, within the Bible, even it says, like, if you're called to prophecy,
Yeah,
reading the future, that kind of stuff, like, use your gifts for prophecy. If you're called to lay hands on people and heal them, do it. If you're called to speak in tongues,
yeah.
that's your spiritual gift. Like, all those things in today's modern world would be seen as witchcraft, like, would be seen as weird. But I mean, that's what I'm doing in shamanic healing sessions, all three of those. And so a lot of energy healers are doing. And that's laid out as gifts in the Bible. So it's weird lines. I always invite people into their own, even the Bible says, test all things, and then you discern what is evil and what is good. Um, so I always invite people into their own testing and discernment of it.
I love that. Makes complete sense and comes from a kind of comforting perspective for those who are struggling with that. 'Cause there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of women, particularly women, some men too, that are struggle with bringing in these gifts that just happen to, they're just on them. Especially they're naturally like born, they're born into a already intuitive process. They haven't awakened. They don't have to awaken that much inside themselves, and so that can be
Hmm.
super scary. So it's great to have that safe space for them as well.
Hmm.
Are there any specific rituals, practices, or exercises that you recommend for women who are seeking to step into their power, especially in a world that often encourages conformity?
Hmm. That is such a good question. It's so specific. So I've held dozens, close to 100 ceremonies at this point. And by ceremonies, we're not talking about plant medicine or anything like that. That's not my personal vibe. Um, we're talking about transformative spiritual ceremonies, shamanic ceremonies. And each ceremony is so different based on the group's energy, based on who's attending. When I curate these ceremonies, they are, specific. I'm working with whoever's guides are there. And I say that because everyone needs something different in their journey, right? So, like, some ceremonies have been more about like clearing out like our wounds. Like, what are our wounds carrying on to from past lovers or from past traumas, past relationships? Other ceremonies are about like retrieving a power animal to help you make more money. I held a ceremony like that, or an ancestral healing ceremony that's designed to help you unlock, let go of the burdens that your ancestors have placed on you and instead reclaim their gifts. So when it comes to ceremonies, I see like two different aspects of ceremony and ritual and any sort of self growth work. And one aspect is the it's like the lower world, so the shamanic lower world. So it's the healing, the trauma work, the deeper reclaiming a part of ourself, letting go of the past, releasing baggage work, right? And then another part is, and these can exist within the same ceremony, but often they have their own spaces. Then the other part is the more like upper world, the lighter, the more like angelic feeling, soul purpose, activating, high vibe like space, right? Um, and so each person needs both in their life, but you might be in a season of needing something different, right? And
Mm,
just like the dance we talked about earlier, these two dance with each other as well. So we need to do the deep clearing out, but then we also need to do the reaching up for our soul's destiny, the reaching the higher vision for our life. So both of those have to exist in practice. But again, there's different seasons of life. So right now I'm in a season of life of the reaching up, right? But a couple years ago, I was in a deep season of the going down into the soil, right? And reworking my foundations, healing my trauma. But of course, as I continuously reach up and expand to new levels and layers of my own soul's destiny, I'll have to touch the soil little bits at a time. I'll have to, the trauma will come up, blocks will come up, and I'll have to address them. But I'm not in a season of that, right?
Yeah.
So I would identify what season are you in, and then focus on rituals and practices that facilitate that. Um, I have recorded, in my membership, this is what we do. Actually, we do these different practices to heal and live your highest destiny. But you can find what are they called? Like shamanic journeys on YouTube or something. I don't necessarily recommend that. I recommend more of a contained space. But if you want something for free, like that's the route to go.
Yeah.
And that would be more of the deeper, work. Or you can find like discover my soul purpose meditation
Yeah.
somewhere, Um, so yeah, identify what season you're in and then curate your ceremonies and practices based on that season.
Yeah. That sounds so great. So, can you share any personal anecdotes or success stories of women you worked with who experienced a profound shift? You know what? We've already did that question. I'm gonna add all this out.
Okay, no
So,
problem.
I think so. Finally, how do you envision the future of holistic and spiritual healing, especially in the context of empowering women to own their power and live authentically?
Mm. So, how do I envision like where the healing world is going in this
Yeah.
context? Yeah, I think, I'm pretty biased because I see what happens in my sessions and people tell me where they've came from, right? And so I don't know what happens in other energy healers sessions and other energy healers practices. So I can only really speak for myself. Um, but I get a lot of women who have been in therapy maybe for years. I get a lot of women who are fed up with surface level practices and who are just like so desperate for something to actually get them unstuck in the area they feel stuck. And they find me at that perfect time, of course. It's how God works, right?
Divine intervention.
Of course, yeah. And I find them at the perfect time. Like it's always like perfect. And so I see people going two ways, especially with some of the people I've talked to. Some people are so deeply programmed, and this is sad to say, but they're so deeply programmed. They're on antidepressants, they're on birth control, they're on like hormonal medicines, they're doing hormonal replacement therapy. Like they're addressing their physical body through the medical system. And it's honestly sad. When I get on the phone with someone that's experiencing that, I say, there's only so much I can do for you because you're actually changing your body on a biological level and
Right.
that's going to influence you. That's going to take precedent over any spiritual work we do. Um, I can help them get off those things with time and with the help of another doctor that I work hand in hand with for the physical level stuff. But they're so in the, well, I've been on this since I was 17, like that's just the reality they live in. So I see that route staying the same.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, years down the road, when someone's 60, they're going to realize the impact that it's done to their hormonal system and their mental health. Um, Now, the other path, I think, are ready for something deeper. They're open for something untraditional, and they're being called back to the roots of our ancestors and the way things have been done for literally since the dawn of humanity. Shamans have existed on every continent.
Right.
So, energy healers, whatever you want to call it, energy healers, prophecy people, healers, medicine people, they've existed on every continent. And I see people being ready for that deep work as well. So, at the shift physically, I think therapists will still have their job, but I think they'll be disappointed with the results that they're seeing and fed up with um, he- helping people, but them not actually transforming, right? I've talked to a lot of therapists who have experienced that. And
Clear.
then I also see healers really stepping up as a role in society. But I think they have, anyone listening who is a healer in some way, shape, or form, you have a big responsibility to fulfill on what you're promising people.
Yes.
I take that as very serious. If I'm like, in a lot of my marketing, I claim people have results in one session. The only reason I claim that is because I worked with hundreds of people who have had results in one session, right? So the worst thing that could happen is you're promising someone something and you don't get them there. You don't get the transformation for them. And then they feel lost and stuck, you know? So I see it as a huge responsibility for us to take it professionally, um, and up our game as healers and up our game to offer transformation, charge accordingly, charge whatever you want, and then, you know, get people the results that they want.
Yeah, and I find a lot of too the results have to do with the client putting in as well too. They have to be open and receptive, and if they come from a halfway not receptive, they're not going to get the same results as someone who's just completely receptive. The ones that are at the they're almost their last struggle. They're like, "This is
Mm.
it. I'm tired of everything. My life has to change, and this is the answer I'm looking for."
Mhm. Well, yeah, we can't force transformation on anyone. But this is where I do have a differing opinion than most people in the context of, you know, I do see it as my job to fix your problem in a
Yeah,
session. I do see that as my job. If you're coming to me, you want to fix the problem. Um, in the context of our 75 minutes together, I see it as my job to fix the problem. If I can't fix the problem for you, aka through the practices we do, I'm not skilled enough to do the job. And I need to be more skilled to do the job, you know? So that's just how I see things. I do think, of course, like it requires openness and for them to do
mhm,
their own awareness work, of course. But also, if you come to me and you're stuck with something and you've tried to fix it and you can't fix it, it's my job to fix it. That's why you're paying me.
yeah,
So, yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Um, I've learned a ton from you, and I'm so excited for our listeners to get this information out for you. Your contact information will be in the show notes. Do you have any other final anything else you want to share?
The only thing I would share is urgency. I'm very passionate about people living their highest destinies. And I think everyone needs to be in alignment with their highest potential and destiny, and at least working with it and towards it. The fruits of everything you want and the happiness, the joy, the money, the relationship, all that stuff is found in the river of your destiny. And so if you're finding yourself unfulfilled, don't wait any longer to find your way back to your river of destiny to heal the things you need to. You're like, this life is to be cherished and this life is to be enjoyed. And we have treasures for us in our river of destiny ready for us. And um, it's worth whatever work you might perceive uh, that has to be done. It's so worth it. So that's what I would share is urgency to enjoy your life, live your highest potential, and do whatever it takes to, be relentless in that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thanks, Alicia, for having me.